Hi, everybody. Welcome to the third edition of International E-Commerce Day on May 23rd. My name is Alex, and I'm going to be your host for the next hour. First, I want to thank everyone for joining us today. We are very excited to bring you this incredible lineup. Also, I want to thank our dear partners, GetResponse, for their support. Remember that we have a live chat during this session, and there will be a 10-minute Q&A where you can ask questions. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce you to Sam. I'm going to try my best to pronounce your name, Mallikarjunan. So that's my Russian accent. Yeah, awesome. And we're lucky to have him live because he was stuck in a desert. If you want more, you can just look on his Facebook Live, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so Sam specialized in growth, and you become growth for e-commerce business, right?
Right.
And today we're gonna teach people how to learn from world-class SaaS companies. Am I right?
Absolutely.
Awesome. So I just recommend you start your PowerPoint presentation, and I'm gonna full screen it.
Wonderful.
Is that okay?
Let's be about it. Let's do it.
Awesome. Is everybody ready? So everybody, can you just type in the chat box, I'm ready, I'm ready, I'm ready, so you know that we're gonna go rampage here. And I see nothing. Guys, just type it. We're up. Fire it up. Okay, awesome. So your PowerPoint presentation is live.
Wonderful.
Sam, you have the mic.
Awesome. Thank you guys for having me. I was bummed that I missed last year, and I'm excited that I get to talk this year. My name is Sam Mallikarjunan. You can find me on Twitter at Mallikarjunan. I decided many years ago that because I'm not going to change my name, I'm going to beat everybody in the face with it until they remember it. So it's my Twitter handle. It's my website. At least until I decide to change my name legally to Sam from HubSpot, because more people say that. I teach digital marketing at the Harvard Division of Continuing Education, and a shameless plug, author of the book, How to Sell Better Than Amazon. I wanted to talk about this topic specifically for a long time because it's one of the most transformative things that anybody has ever said to me. There was an entrepreneur in Boston. His name is Matt Lausen, who is the founder and CEO of an e-commerce company called Gemvara. They sold jewelry, relatively straightforward business model through an e-commerce application. And, I asked him sort of the generic question. I was young. This was 2010. I asked him the generic question everybody asks, which is, what's the future of e-commerce? And he was giving a talk at my company, HubSpot. And his response was that the future of e-commerce is that we need to start thinking like SaaS companies. And it really clicked with me because I worked at a SaaS company. I'd done e-commerce before in a couple of different roles. I'd done e-commerce marketing and leadership. But SaaS was really what I loved. SaaS stands for software as a service. It's these recurring revenue subscriptions that you sign up for, like Dropbox or Zendesk or HubSpot. And listening to him talk about how SaaS and e-commerce, how we could blur the lines between those two, and how we could take concepts that were pretty new in the world of business economics with SaaS and apply them to the better understood concepts behind e-commerce and digital retail really got me thinking, really made me interested in it.
Sam,
and it was particularly interesting.
Okay,
yeah,
sorry,
I know.
Sorry. Okay, yeah,
my presentation's not rolling yet. That was just my soliloquy. It was particularly interesting to me because we were entering this period of great disruption. So the Fortune 500 is this list, obviously, that everyone wants to be on. It's the 400 largest companies in the world, or in the US. And the lifespan of a company on the Fortune 500 used to be 75 years. Now it's just 15 years. And soon we project it to be just 5 years. 5 years until a company that was on the Fortune 500 is either off the list or potentially gone entirely. There's a professor at Yale named Richard Foster who estimates that by 2020, 3/4 of the companies in the Fortune 500 will be companies we've never heard of. Now, this is terrifying if people have heard of your company. So I'm somewhat hoping that not everybody has heard of HubSpot on this webinar. But it's really, really exciting because it means that there are 375 slots on the Fortune 500 that are up for grabs. This thing that used to define your company, you're a Fortune 500 company, you're a Fortune 500 CEO, is now this opportunity that's open to everyone if we learn to think differently. Now, what's causing this? Deloitte has done some great research on the rate of knowledge depreciation. So it used to be that the way you built a business model was you acquired either an invention or a piece of technology, and you just stretched it out, you monetize it over a long period of time. You would even name your company after it, right? You were General Electric, you were Standard Oil, you were General Motors, etc. Now, the value of having a piece of knowledge, some invention or business model or tactic, has declined to just, interestingly enough, 5 years. Also 5 years. If you know something, if you have some special advantage, at best you have about 5 years where that's useful. And this disruption isn't coming because we're running low on cash. US companies are sitting on more than $2 trillion in cash, more cash than at any point in the history of business. It's happening because the way that we do work is changing. So we need to figure out how to compete with ourselves the same way that SaaS companies do. E-commerce companies traditionally have focused on volume and average order value and some of these very traditional retail metrics. But then SaaS came in, particularly with Salesforce and Oracle and some of these other companies, and really upended the traditional B2B retail model. So having enough money isn't enough anymore, right? You just being Amazon isn't good enough. Having lots of money isn't good enough anymore. You can't just buy your industry's Uber, right? The taxi companies had plenty of money and plenty of ability to buy Uber when it was young. But the pace of change has evolved so rapid that by the time you realize you should buy Uber, they're bigger than you are. So we tend to think of how technology is adopted in this nice smooth bell curve, right? On the far left, you've got innovators like me and you guys, early adopters, who will buy basically anything, right? The fact that I download your app or buy from your website does not mean that you have product market fit, because I will buy anything just to see how it works, and I'll download an app just to see if it'll break my phone. And on the far right, you've got laggards, sort of like my mom, for example, who just recently switched off of AOL dial-up internet a couple of years ago. And it's not even this smooth anymore, because this nice smooth curve has been replaced by what we call big bang market disruption, where you've got like a small number of trial users like me and like the people on this call, but then you very quickly, within just a few years or maybe a decade, reach the majority of the market that you're going to reach. And this has really upended how we think about the importance of growth. And this is part of what led to the rise and preeminence of the SaaS model. The SaaS model, software as a service model, above all, generally solves for growth. How can we grow really, really quickly? So in your minds, I want you to forget that the bell curve exists. That nice smooth bell curve that we thought about, that doesn't exist anymore in our minds. Our lives now operate in S curves. So once you reach that growth plateau where you stop growing, it's time to start thinking about, how do we compete with ourselves? How do we create new markets? Or how do we drive additional growth from within the market that we have? There might be a lot of startups on this call. I know there's a lot, especially over in Eastern Europe and the Middle East. There's a lot of tech startups coming out that are very, very exciting. That S-curve goes through 4 phases that are particularly relevant to you. The first phase is figuring out whether or not you have product market fit. It doesn't matter necessarily if you have a business model. We need to know that you're doing something that people want, that you're selling something that people want. The second phase is, can you get the math to work? For every dollar that you put into the business model, can you get a certain number of dollars out? And then the third phase is, can you get the math to scale? So I don't care necessarily that I give you $1 and you give me $3. I want to give you $1 million and have you give me $3 million. Can you scale that? And then in the fourth phase, you started to saturate your market. You can't grow from that market anymore, and you need to find new opportunities. So instead of this 20th century business strategy of extracting value from knowledge stocks, we need to figure out how to shift towards this SaaS model where the primary variable is customer centricity. And when I say customer centricity, I don't mean the customer is always right. The customer is very often wrong. When I say customer centricity, I mean that acquiring and monetizing a specific type of customer is what your business model is based around. Not trying to sell a transaction, but acquiring a type of customer. Awesome. So how do we focus on this? There's a great theory by Clay Christensen, who pioneered, obviously, the disruptive innovation theory, called the extendable core, and focusing on what we call the jobs to be done. Henry Ford has the most famous quote on this, which is that if he had asked his customers what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse. Obviously, that's not, it turned out, what the market wanted. The market wanted to get from point A to point B as cost effectively, as quickly, and as safely as possible. And it turned out that the horse at the time was the best thing for that, but Henry Ford came up with a different way. It's this sort of customer obsession about figuring out what your customers are actually trying to accomplish, the job to be done that they're hiring you to do. This is what powers great and transformative businesses. If you can figure that out, and you can build your supply model and your inventory model and your marketing and your monetization models around that, you can build an awesome, large, and sustainable business. In software development, we also often call this a user story or a user assumption. And it's written as a sentence. As an X, I want to Y so that I can Z. This gives us the job to be done. Now, you should have this for the people that you're selling to. In the e-commerce space, a lot of us try to follow the model of Amazon, where Amazon tries to sell literally everything to literally everyone. It's worked for Amazon, and Amazon makes $300,000 a minute. They're a great company, but it's not really a model that most of us are going to be able to replicate. Most of us are going to try and own one specific type of buyer persona, be the place that someone with a specific type of problem is going to come to for a solution. That's how you sell better than Amazon. I want to take a brief pivot and talk about one of my favorite new games that has come out, Pokemon. So Nintendo was sort of flagging, they were coming off a decade of declining revenues, and then suddenly out of nowhere, this Pokemon Go game comes out, and you've got people walking into walls because they're playing it. They're so excited and they're enjoying it so much. In fact, Pokemon Go is the fastest thing to ever reach 50 million users. Faster than radio, faster than Facebook, and even faster than Angry Birds. It took Pokemon Go just 19 days to reach 50 million users. Faster than any previous app. It's also the fastest game in history to make $1 billion. So shortly after the end of 2016, the Pokemon Go game had made $1 billion. Meanwhile, here's what we see. Everybody looks at this chart, which is the overall growth in daily active users. They look at this and assume, oh, Pokemon Go really isn't that great of a thing. Pokemon Go is dying, right? That was the popular article title 6 months ago, 5 months ago. Pokemon Go is dying because they have less daily active users than they did before. This isn't actually how, in the SaaS business, we look for product market fit. And it's not how you should look at it in the e-commerce business either. It's not necessarily the overall number of people that you can sell to, unless you're a business model like Amazon. What you care about is retention. So I love Alex Schultz at Facebook, his growth lecture. He defines it sort of with unnecessarily large words, right? Your cohort retention is asymptotic to the x-axis. But what that means is that when you acquire a group of users in a given month, eventually you will lose some of them, right? Some of them will stop using the product, some of them didn't like it, some of them will die. But you never lose all of them, right? So product A and product B in this chart started off acquiring the same number of users. But after a certain period of time, product B had lost all of its users. Product A hadn't. The group of people that they hadn't lost, that was their product market fit. And this does matter. This is how we drive growth, particularly in SaaS. So if you look at these two graphs here, the dirty secret sort of startups and also SaaS and the way that e-commerce lives in general is that you can outgrow churn for a long time. Churn is somebody who buys from you once and then never buys from you again. You can outgrow that for a decent period of time, just because if anybody on this call wants to launch a startup, I don't care what it is you're selling, I can probably sell it faster than our customers can cancel for a while. I'm just like, we're decently good at sales and marketing. We could figure it out. But eventually, if you're losing customers from each cohort, you reach this plateau on the left where you can't grow anymore. As opposed to on the right, if you keep these people buying from you, it creates the stacking effect that allows you to grow long term. This is why focusing on retention is the primary obsession of growth companies who are in that third and fourth phase, who are in that SaaS phase. And sometimes this has to influence what you're actually selling. So at HubSpot, back in 2011, we had what we called our tofu tools, which are our top of the funnel tools. Search engine optimization, social media, blogging content, that sort of stuff. That was our main focus. and they were pretty good tools. We had this separate offering of what we call MOFU tools, or middle of the funnel tools, email automation, landing pages, that sort of thing. And they were kind of mediocre, if I'm being honest, back in 2011. But what we looked at was that even the people who used our crappy middle of the funnel tools, our well, I'll call them mediocre middle of the funnel tools, even the people who used those were more likely to continue giving us money. And so we had to focus on that segment of the market. Clearly, there was a need, there was a desire, there was a product market fit there that was actually better than the top of the funnel tools that we had created, people who just wanted to drive more traffic to their website. So by looking at this retention, by figuring out that we weren't going to be able to grow, it actually informed what products we were going to sell as a SaaS company. This is a great chart from For Entrepreneurs by David Skok. It's a wonderful blog that I recommend for anybody who is interested in SaaS metrics. But this looks at sort of the retention. This is 3% churn. So 3% of your customers are canceling every given month. Eventually, you're going to have no users, no revenue left from that universe. And even if you're growing how much the individual user gives you, this is his chart from, I believe, Zendesk, where they were growing, they started $100 a month, and they actually grow $5 a month every month, how much they're giving you. At 3% churn, you'll see this spike, but then eventually, again, you're going to run out of cash if you're not good at customer retention. And this shifts us from having a marketing mindset to having a growth mindset. SaaS companies, customer acquisition and customer retention have to be aligned. Otherwise, they're not going to be able to make the math work, which is what we're going to talk about next. Marketing traditionally is just awareness and acquisition, right? How do I get more people to the site, and how do I get them to buy or get their email address or something? So we do really irritating things, right? We do, maybe none of us on this call do any SEO spam, of course, but we do SEO, we do PPC, we might do some email marketing, we might do some social media marketing, whatever it is. We have abandonment modals on our website that pop up and try and get people's email address. This is what we focus on when we're talking about marketing. But growth requires a holistic view of an individual customer, driving them from awareness through acquisition, through monetization, the revenue, and then eventually through referral and helping them grow us. So instead of thinking of your business from the perspective of transactional economics, which is how most e-commerce businesses think of it, right? I'm going to spend, $3 in PPC to sell a $10 item on my site, right? Instead of thinking about it that way, we think in terms of what we call customer-centric unit economics. And this is the great power in SaaS. So again, instead of $3 in, $10 out, we may look at $1 into acquiring a customer instead of a transaction. Your business model does its business model-y things, and then you put $2 out on the back end. That's a cool business model, 1 to 2. Or you might say, I'm going to spend $2 to acquire a customer, do it in your business model-y things, and then I'm going to get $4 out. It's actually the same business model as the first business model. It's just more scalable, right? Still a 1 to 2 ratio. If I gave you $1, you would be able to give me $2 back. Or if you could, for example, put $2 in and have a potentially slower growing but more profitable model that puts $12 out. Now, this may seem obvious. This may seem like a very minor pivot, but this changes how we look at the business, because you can only lower the cost of customer acquisition so much. You can get good at SEO, you can get good at PPC, you can get good at social media, but here's a takeaway I want you to internalize. We've gotten pretty good at acquisition marketing. Acquisition marketing in the world is about as close as we get to an economy or a marketplace of perfect efficiency. We're really good at SEO, we're really good at PPC, we're really good at getting people in. And so the real leverage in the business model, when we look at it from this perspective as a ratio of dollar into a customer, dollar out from a customer over the course of their lifetime, the real leverage comes from their customer lifetime value. So when you're modeling your funnels, instead of saying you're selling a $10 product, what you should do is start with your customer's lifetime value and work your way back. So let's say that your customer lifetime value is $1,200, right? Maybe that's $120 a month subscription in the SaaS business with 10% monthly churn. So after a year, they're going to be gone. But you want a ratio of 1 to 3. That's a good solid ratio. That's relatively easy math, right? That means you can spend $400 to acquire a customer. If you have a 10% contact to customer rate or lead to customer rate, it means that you can spend $40 to generate a contact. And if you turn 5% of the people who come to your website into a contact who you can then nurture and get them to buy, that means that you can spend $2 driving traffic to your website. Most of you people are probably familiar with funnels like this, but what you're missing is the middle, right? E-commerce doesn't have the concept of a lead. I actually, when I'm talking with e-commerce companies, I rephrase it as pre-transactional contacts because it makes e-commerce executives feel more comfortable than when I call them leads because they don't think that they're leads. But in reality, unless you're selling iPad covers or something with a very short sales cycle, there's some consideration that people have to go through. They can get some information in exchange for contacts, and then you can nurture them. I love to use Starbucks as the apex example here. So Starbucks is a global coffee and food chain where the average order value is about $6. But a company called Kissmetrics ran a study on them a long time ago that showed their lifetime value is actually closer to $14,000. The average Starbucks customer will spend $14,000 over the course of their lifetime. Now, if you're a Starbucks marketer, you're not trying to spend maybe $2 to sell a $6 cup of coffee. You're trying to spend $2,000, maybe $3,000, maybe $5,000 to acquire and retain a $14,000 customer. This is a transactional retail model, but they've built their big business on lifetime value. I actually reran these numbers for people who work at HubSpot. We have an average customer lifetime value of over $30,000 to Starbucks. It would literally be worth it for them to just park a barista in our office to serve us coffee. This is why they have big leather couches. In Boston, it's why they have big fireplaces. It's why they have good Wi-Fi. So some Starbucks have better Wi-Fi than I do at home. I clocked one at like 82 megabits down, which if you're in Europe doesn't sound impressive. In the US, that's actually quite high. They want you to come in, they want you to stay there, and they want you to spend money. And this creates growth leverage. Most e-commerce companies, like most retail companies, look at their business like this. They make a little bit of money off the first transaction, and then you spam your entire email list 3 times a week with a coupon and call that email marketing. Some percentage of those people will continue to buy over time. A SaaS business looks at it like this, where I can actually lose money to acquire a customer because I'm really confident that the customer is going to stay around. So I can spend more money than their initial transaction. This is my takeaway number 2. If you're really good at keeping customers, you can spend more money getting customers. I can spend more money on PPC. I can hire more people to do SEO. I can hire more people to do conversion rate optimization and email marketing if I'm really good at keeping customers. Now, the worst possible thing you can do is to have a blend of these two models, right? Where you lose money to acquire a customer, but then you're not good at keeping them, and you have an unprofitable business model, and you eventually fail. You will run into, if you ever attend finance classes in the US, you'll eventually run into this phrase: cash flow is more important than your mother. You can actually grow yourself out of business if you're not careful, right? If you add too many customers, more than you have cash on hand, if you spend more than that to acquire them, you can run out of money. You can run out of business. So it's important to balance how much you want to spend to acquire a customer with how much cash you have on hand. At an e-commerce company, we're generally focused on profit margins, right? How much are we making per unit? And that's an important thing to track. But if we start to think about this in terms of customer centricity, we can grow better. One of the things that I like to tell people, particularly in the e-commerce business, is we have this concept of go wide, right? Everything in e-commerce, in Amazon is a great example of this. It's the everything store. You want to go wide. You want to have every possible thing that somebody could buy. I would argue that instead of having every possible thing that somebody could buy, or instead of owning a specific niche and having every possible variation of it, have every possible thing that a specific buyer persona or person with a job to be done could want, right? So it would be better to be the place to go to find stuff to build a house, for example, than to just have every possible variation of hammers. Because every possible variation of hammers is going to make it very easy for you to acquire a customer, right? You are the hammer guys. You are the place where people go to buy hammers. But if you're not good at selling them then nails, and then selling them construction tarps, and then maybe selling them some wood and glass and these other things, you're not going to be able to build that customer-centric business model that allows you to create leverage over time. You can only spend $3 to sell a $10 hammer. You can't spend $300 to acquire and retain a $1,200 customer. So I would encourage you to go wide with your personas. Again, shameless plug, I wrote the book, How to Sell Better Than Amazon. The key here is how to sell better, not more, right? If I knew how to sell more than Amazon, we would be doing this webinar from like my secret mountain lair on an island in the Pacific, not from a hotel in Salt Lake City, Utah. But how to sell better than Amazon is really focusing on the education phases. How do I help people make decisions? And then the retention phases. How do I get really, really good at keeping people buying from me, keeping them engaged with my business, and then growing the amount of money they spend with me over time? If you can get really good at keeping customers, you can spend more money to get customers. Amazon, I'm actually a big fan of Amazon, but I don't love their email marketing, right? So this is a real screenshot from my actual inbox. I average about 3 emails a day from Amazon.com. Some of them are somewhat interesting. Some of them are confusing me with, my wife or whatever, but 3 emails a day. Now, I want to introduce you to some very important people in my life. These are my grandparents. My father on the right there, my grandfather on the right, unfortunately passed away a couple of years ago. So I try and talk to my grandmother whenever I can on the left. Even she does not email me 3 times a day. If you are emailing me more times than my widowed grandmother that I'm trying to form a connection with and have a long-term conversation with, you're doing it wrong. You're doing marketing wrong. And I understand this temptation. If you ever come to the US, you'll probably be harassed in malls at some point by somebody trying to sell you a cell phone. I used to train those people. I'm very familiar with that. All we cared about was how quickly can we get you to buy something. Just buy, 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 buy. I could actually do the T-Mobile sales pitch in Spanish. I don't even speak Spanish, but I could do it in Spanish because I didn't care what you said next. My pitch did not vary based on what you responded. All I cared about was saying the right words to get you to buy, and if you weren't going to buy, goodbye. This is what's created the trust problem that we have in marketing. We have abused consumers so much that it's made it harder for us to sell to them. Every year, HubSpot does this survey, asks a very simple question: who do you trust? And at the top, as you'd expect, you've got firefighters and doctors. A little further down, you've got those baristas at Starbucks, for example, who are still somehow more trusted than us. And then a little further down, you've got politicians and lobbyists. And then at the very bottom, this sliver that actually could not be rounded up to 1%. Salespeople got rounded up to 1%. We were rounded down to 0%. There were some people, but 0% at an average said that they trusted marketers. Now, this survey was conducted in 2016 in the US. And the numbers are slightly better when you look at the global scale. First of all, there's a larger sample size. It's about 1,000 people as opposed to a couple hundred. But I want you to think about the year that we just had in the United States in politics. And we are less trusted than politicians and lobbyists because we have abused people's attention, because we're not customer-centric. We're transaction-centric. All we care about is getting you to buy the next thing. Now, again, Amazon, I'm a big fan, and I think they're doing the right thing for the right reasons. They just have a much harder job of it. They're trying to sell everything to everyone every minute of every day. But I love this story from Bezos. Jeff Bezos, the founder and CEO at Amazon, once got a letter from his investors when he put negative reviews on his website. And his investors said, "Listen, Jeff, we know you think this internet thing is going to be big, but you clearly don't know how to run a business. You make money when you sell things. Why would you do anything to discourage that with negative reviews?" And Bezos replied, "We don't make money when we sell things. We make money when we help customers make purchase decisions. Even if that's not buying from Amazon, Amazon has ads that will send you to someone else's website if they don't have what you're looking for. because they want to be the person that you trust with starting the decision. If you own that process, then you own the customer. So like I said, Amazon does a poor job of this on a macro level now. As a customer who spends lots of money with Amazon, they do a poor job with this. And some of the data is in there, right? So they sent me one email on April 20th that was kind of interesting. My in-laws, right, like to play golf, and I'm terrible at golf. So I've been looking at these swing trainers. The reason I haven't bought anything is not because I don't have money, right? It's not because I, am shopping around for a lower price. It's because I don't know what to buy, right? I know nothing about golf. I know lots about economics, but I know nothing about golf. And Amazon hasn't taken the time to figure out that that's my problem and help me make a decision about what to buy in terms of golf training, right? Helping me work on my golf swing so it doesn't slice off to the right. This methodology takes the funnel that we're used to thinking about, transactional economics. How do I take a visitor to my site and get them to buy something? And it turns it into what I call the e-commerce marketing sousaphone. So this is a marching tuba, right? Where the bottom of the funnel forms an infinite loop with the middle of the funnel. This is how great businesses are built. So you've probably heard of the buying cycle, right? You're going to attract people to your website. You're going to convert them into contacts. You're going to close them into customers and then delight them. I want to present to you now a framework that I created with the folks over at Magento, which superimposes the buying cycle, the inbound methodology, and the actual buying journey that people go through. So you've got people who are in the relevance phase, right? And you create blog article contact, and you just try and generate this audience. And a large percentage of the audience that you collect may never buy from you. And that's okay. You're still owning that research phase of the buying cycle. You're still owning their attention. Then they come to your website, and maybe they're researching options, or they're comparing different products, or maybe they're ready to buy. Your job is to know which of these phases they're in and deliver the relevant experience. If I'm bouncing back and forth between two product detail pages, what phase of the buying cycle am I in? That's right, comparison, right? Sending me a coupon there is not useful. I'm not in the intent phase. I don't need you to accelerate my sense of urgency. I'm trying to make a decision between two options. You need to look at that behavior and understand. And then maybe I add something to my cart. Now I'm in the intent phase, but I learned something new and I actually abandon. What I like about this model is the arrows go both directions. I can learn something new when I'm buying, before I buy, that kicks me all the way back to the research phase of the buying cycle. And I start reading your blog articles again and downloading content or looking at customer reviews. You need to identify that behavior, see that behavior, and then you need to serve me up a relevant experience. Sending me coupons when I'm not sure if this is what I want to buy is a waste of your time and my time. I'm not going to buy from you. I'm not going to trust you. So now you've closed somebody, congratulations, you got a purchase. And most e-commerce marketers stop here, right? Now I go onto your list and you spam me 3 times a week with a coupon, and this is how you treat me and try to monetize me long term. In reality, this is where you focus on your upsell, cross-sell, resell, where you understand more about them and then do a better job of selling to them. Netflix is one of my favorite business models in the world. Netflix is obviously a streaming video service. I've filled out or reviewed over 800 movies for Netflix. 800 movies. Most of us would kill to have our customers fill out an 800 question survey. But the reason that I do that is because I know that Netflix is going to use each time that I rate a movie, it's going to use that to make my experience better. They have figured out a way to retain me by getting me to give them lots of information, because every time I use their service, my experience with them gets better. That's the ideal way to do upsell, cross-sell, and resell, to keep the customer coming back. And if you're good at keeping customers, you can spend more to get customers. That turns them into promoters, which actually makes it cheaper to acquire your next customer, right? It sort of breaks math. If your customers start talking about you, they have a high net promoter score, that makes it cheaper to acquire the next customer. The first half of this is the cost of customer acquisition. The second half of this is focusing on customer lifetime value. This is how we build great SaaS businesses, and this is how the great e-commerce businesses of the future will be built. So we talked a little bit about testing, right? So with inbound commerce and with all this stuff, you want to test these hypotheses because you don't really know necessarily what the customer wants. You have to test it. At HubSpot Labs, we had a site called inbound.org, a big community site. I strongly encourage you to go join it. There's lots of marketers there, specifically in e-commerce. And we just used Google Sheets to track all these hypotheses that we had about whether or not a specific type of user wanted a specific type of thing. Right? We would just list out all these hypotheses and we managed it in Google Sheets. And this is how we built the experience because our goal was to get really good at keeping people on the inbound.org website. One of my team members had a theory that people wanted the content segmented by skill level, marketing skill level, rather than topic. I said, cool, awesome, test that theory. So instead of reorganizing the entire website, she just put 3 buttons at the top. One said beginner, one said intermediate, and one said advanced. And we wanted to see if people clicked the button for the thing. If you clicked the button, it took you to this manually curated bit of content that she had created, but nothing programmatic, nothing that required our developers to do any work. And if you didn't click the button, you just moved on with your day. That was information too. We didn't build the technology behind the thing unless people clicked on the button for the thing. We validated whether or not they wanted what we were selling, whether or not they wanted what we were providing. Now, it turns out in this case, the click-through rate was exceptionally high. People did want that sort of experience. So 3% click-through rate spread across 3 buttons on the homepage was actually pretty good. It was better than anything else that we want on the homepage, or that we had on the homepage. So we redesigned it. Now, in our case, as a SaaS business, beginner, intermediate, advanced are our products. Right? This is what we're doing. This is the way that we're delivering value. In your case, products has a more literal meaning. You're selling a physical product or service. We write these out as specific experiment designs, right? We have an objective, we have somebody who runs it, we describe it, and we have these hypotheses that we test. And then we have either a definition of a win or a loss. And then we track these on an ongoing basis. We've built our growth company around testing different hypotheses for what do people want. Does a specific type of person want a specific type of product? And we run these tests on a large sample size. This gives us good data, and then we restructure our business around that. Again, almost none of this is at the top of the funnel. None of this is lowering your cost per click. None of this is doing better on-page SEO. This is working with the universe that we have to make sure that we're really good at keeping them around, and that helps us build a beautiful business. There's just a couple other tactics, and then I really want to open it up to Q&A so we can have a good discussion. One thing that SaaS businesses do is they leverage something called platform strategy. So platform strategy is things like, Facebook we think of as a platform company, HubSpot we think of as a platform company, Oracle we think of as a platform company. And this is an example of an app marketplace, right? So let's say you're a CRM company and you've got these people who build apps. One does field routing for sales reps, one does lead scoring, and then maybe there's an app that does marketing automation. Now, if you're a SaaS company, you're going to look at this and be like, wow, our best customers, all of them are using this field routing app. So we're going to build that into the functionality of the platform. Or, a bunch of them are using this marketing automation app, so we're going to build it that way. But we're not going to build a power dialer because our best customers don't really use power dialers that much. Now, Amazon.com does this the exact same way. Amazon, eBay, they let retailers sell on their platform so that they can figure out the pricing, they can assume all the risk, but it's still platform strategy. Before Amazon went into selling jewelry, they let jewelry retailers sell on Amazon to figure out what they had to do to get really good, not at getting customers. Amazon was good at getting customers, but what they had to do in order to keep jewelry customers. So they leveraged a platform strategy to figure this out. This is an example of an e-commerce company leveraging a very successful SaaS tactic. Got to remove the Harvard logo, ignore that. When we talk about pre-transactional contacts and we talk about all this math behind it, it's not just customer centricity as like hug your customers, the customer is always right. I decided a while ago that I wanted to get married, but I know less about jewelry than I do about golf. And so I searched for, how do you decide what wedding ring to buy? And I found this ebook that was awesome. It was The Guy's Guide to Buying Jewelry. It was great. It was perfect. And all they asked me for was my first name and my email. Now, they probably could have asked me for more information if they made it clear they were going to help me make a decision. They could have asked me for my price point. They could have asked me for her favorite color. They could have asked me for what kind of stones and styles she likes. They could have asked me for all this information, just like Netflix does, because I know that they're going to use that to help me make a better decision. And it's not just growing my email list, right? Like, nobody cares how big your email list is. It's what you can extract from your email list that matters. If, let's say, for example, each one of these rings cost $100. It didn't, trust me. But let's say, for example, that each ring costs $100 to keep my math easy. And 10% of the people who download this ebook ended up buying one of their rings. That means that each ebook download is worth $10. We call this pipeline revenue in SaaS. Now, my goal as a marketer is to keep this blue line over here on the right, keep this blue line above the green line. The green line is the sales team's quota. What are the revenue goals for the company that we have to hit in order to keep our cash flow positive and everything else that we have to do? The blue line is the sum of all of the actions that people have taken. For example, downloading an ebook. It's the sum of all of those adjusted for the probability of whether or not they're going to become a customer based on how much they're probably going to spend. It's not just the customer is always right. Right? Once I look at it, acquiring a customer as my unit of economic value, then I can decompile that life cycle, that big cycle that we looked at earlier, look at each one of those steps, assign each one of them a monetary value, and I can predict whether or not, with fair accuracy, whether or not I'm covering my sales team's quota. In case you're wondering, my beautiful wife, she did in fact say yes when I proposed. I want to end on an interesting note. We've talked a lot about math today. We've talked about acquisition and retention and the cohort retention being asymptotic to the x-axis. We've used a lot of this math. But what all of the math is describing is the journey of a real human being, a real human person who's going to start and maintain a relationship with your brand. This is a picture of somebody who has the HubSpot logo tattooed on his leg. He also has the Moz logo there on the right. The HubSpot logo, we're a SaaS, we're a Boston-based software company, sales and marketing software company. And he has the HubSpot sprocket tattooed as this like weird sun over this like Pacific island. And I don't know whether or not this person is a customer now or not. I do know that they've read a bunch of our content, and that was their primary thing in their tweet that the social media team sent to me about why they did this, right? Was we did such a good job at educating them and teaching them and helping him grow his career. Well, I presume it's a him based on the hairiness of the leg. But helping him grow his career, that he just became a huge fan of us. And the question now is not, can we sell to him? It's not, can we close him? It's not send him 3 emails a day trying to get him to buy. I guarantee you that if he is not buying from us now, it's because he either doesn't have the budget, doesn't have the authority, doesn't have the need, or the time's not right. All of those common objections in sales. But if any of those things are ever true, he's definitely going to buy from us. This is an exciting time in marketing, right? Right now, we're at the bottom. We're at the floor. This is as bad as it gets. We are not trusted. We're generally not a very respected profession in the world. We're losing out to politicians and freaking lobbyists, which in the US and around the world, generally a pretty humiliating thing to do. But if you do this right, if you follow the SaaS example of modeling very well, start with the customer lifetime value, focus on growing that, and then juxtapose that as a ratio against the customer acquisition cost, the cost of customer acquisition, or COCA. If you look at it that way, and then you model the life cycle, and then you get good at customizing the buying cycle to the actual customer, to what they want, not only will you build a big, healthy, sustainable business with good retention long term, but you're going to feel good about yourself. You're going to have a better career, and it's going to be this happy thing that you can enjoy. All right, thank you guys so much. I hope you found that useful, and now let's dig into some questions. I think I got Alex. Hello? Bueller? Ooh, sweet. I just broke the internet. I think what just happened is what happens whenever you point two mirrors at each other. Hello? Yeah, can you hear me? Cool. Let's answer some questions. I think we went a little bit over time. Cool. We're going to have to stop here, I'm hearing. That's fine. That's awesome. If you guys have any questions, tweet me at Mallikarjunan. Thank you guys. I really hope you guys enjoyed this. It's my pleasure. At Mallikarjunan, find me there. Send me any questions that you guys have. I'm going to go check my Twitter right now and answer this. Sorry, I ran a little bit over. I get very, very excited about this sort of stuff. So thank you guys for having me.